In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how Hans Niemann approaches the Pirc Defense versus the Austrian Attack. But before going into that, a message from today's sponsor, which is me. All right, y'all, here's the deal. Okay, a lot of this channel is about openings, opening theory, all that kind of stuff, and that's a lot of fun. What I would say, though, is that chess endgames are arguably the most important part of the game of chess in terms of improvement. And because of that, I just put together an over 28-hour course on chess endgames meant to get you into the top 1% of players. This course is really meant to be a resource that you can use for the rest of your career playing chess. It takes you from knowing nothing about chess endgames into very complicated subjects that really only the top 1% of endgame players know about. Again, if you're interested in improving as a chess player, improving at your endgame skills, I am giving out a 30% off discount code for the rest of this month, the month of September. That discount code is Chess25. Go down the description below, go down to the pinned comment, plug in the discount code Chess25, and you will receive 30% off on your purchase on that chess endgames course. And you can use it for any of my other courses on Gumroad as well. Really up to you. But yeah, for those of you that get it, I hope you enjoy it. And let's now head over to the video. So here Hans Niemann, playing as black, plays the Pirc against the Austrian, but we get there in an abnormal move order. We actually have this game start off with the move of d4. Niemann responds with knight to f6. And with knight c3, white was probably hoping for the move of d5, right? If black plays d5, white there can go into bishop f4. They're in that Joe Baba London type approach, which really seems to have popularized quite a bit over the last couple of years. But knight c3 here, instead we see the move of d6 from black. And with e4, we now have g6. f4 is played, bishop g7. We're in the Pirc, we're in the Austrian attack. And white here plays the move of knight to f3. Castling kingside is played, and we have recently had a couple of videos in which case the move of bishop to d3 was played in that position. Magnus Carlsen played the move of c5, kind of combining Pirc defense and Sicilian defense ideas together. And then we covered a game played by Daniel Naroditsky, in which case he played the move of knight c6, which is the stockfish recommendation. But in this video, we're taking a look at this move of e5, and the best thing that black can do by far is take the pawn, and then against the move of f takes e5, look to centralize that knight. Now, of course, there's a few different ways that white could capture back. Of course, we're going to be taking a look at the game, but I also want to be taking a look at theory as well in these videos. I don't want to just go through the game. I want you guys that play the Pirc defense to get something out of it from the theoretical level as well. So here, I do want to start off by saying knight takes e5. That knight is active, but this is just a bad move. It's just a bad move. Okay, white has used this pawn very aggressively just to lose it for the pawn on d6, and in return there, you have a position in which case, yeah, I mean, we already have our king castled. We have our king castled. We're very safe here. Our bishop's fianchettoed. White, on the other hand, their king is in the center. So here as black, what do? We strike and we play aggressively. If white tries to hang on to the pawn, let's go pester that bishop a little bit. Let's attack that guy. If you decide to take, I mean, sure, you just took a clean piece off the board, but it's only clean in one sense because we're now going to take on d4, and here we go. I mean, e3 and c3 are both forked, and the engine here has us at nearly -2, about -1.7 for the black side. And if white takes, which is the best option that white has, we're not trading here. Okay, we're up development, and white's king is a lot less safe than ours. Let's put more pressure on that side. We're pinning that knight. We're putting pressure on c5. If bishop e3, bishop e6 is a good developmental move. We could very quickly bring our rook to d8, continue developing. And I mean, look, again, white's not even castled yet. They're not castled, and we have a lot of pressure on their side of the board. Let's say we see castling kingside quickly here. Okay, knight g4. This is just a sample line. This is a sample line here. Again, going back, if knight takes e5, you can play c5, queen a5, develop quickly. Bishop to e6 there is a good move. Knight to g4 there is also a good move. So you have multiple options there. But yeah, you're just going to be developing quickly and really putting pressure on the white side. You're only down one pawn, and this pawn on c5 is far from secure. If white takes with the d pawn, here we're sitting at even material, so trading down is totally fine. If the king decides to capture back, we can't centralize our knight, so we're going to go with knight h5. And don't even think about trying to trap that knight, because the moment you play h3, guess what? Both h2 and f2 have left their spots, which makes knight g3 available. And yeah, I mean, okay, if the knight takes back, in this case, you can centralize. And if c4, kind of a Aliakin's defense idea there with knight b6. And white here has the edge, but I actually like black's position. We're looking at knight c6, we're looking at f6, we're looking at bishop g4 possibly, and I just feel like white's position here is kind of awkward. So I personally like these kinds of positions more for the black side. But in the game here, white ends up taking with the f-pawn, and now we can centralize our knight safely. Of course, if white there takes with the d-pawn, we can't centralize because there are two attackers there. White would simply take with the queen, and yeah, I mean, we're just dead losing that. So, okay, we have f takes e5, knight d5 is played, h4, not the best move. I mean, I think this is too quick. It creates too many weaknesses. The engine really does love the move of c5 here. I mean, striking in the center, and that's the whole idea of the Pirc Defense. That's the whole idea of the Hippo. That's the whole idea of the check Pirc. That's the whole purpose of playing the King's Indian. You're giving your opponent the center, and then you're going to attack it, right, with your flank pawns, with your minor pieces. Here, c5 is the way to go. But we do see the second best option instead with bishop to g4. h5 is played. And whenever you're playing these fianchetto types of openings, the modern, the Pirc, you name it, be careful when seeing h5. Oftentimes, taking with the bishop is not a good idea. Oftentimes, with the bishop or the knight, because your opponent can take with the rook, and you are up 3 points in material here, but your pawn structure is obliterated, and white here could play queen d3. Looking at f5, white could also play bishop d3. And, I mean, here I would personally probably start off with trading down, you know, at least thinking about that. f6 is also something to consider. Maybe knight b4 is something to look at as well, going after the bishop on d3. If you play something like h6, right, one little slip here like that, trying to slow down that knight from getting into g5. Turns out knight h4 is the way to go. h5 is not looking good. Knight f5 is a possibility. We're in trouble. I mean, this is a losing for us. So instead, here in the game, we see the move of knight to c6. That wasn't the best move, not the worst move either. c5 is what we should go with, right? c5. Let's just say that white ends up taking. What do we do now? We capture on c3. Whether you take on d8 first or if you take on c3 right away, in either case, triple isolated pawns. Triple. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. Here you could trade down. The engine also has queen to a5. Now that is, you know, it feels a little bit risky in some senses because white does have some attacking play on the king's side, but at the same time, I mean, these are major weaknesses. Whether you take their queen there or not, you're going to have a much better position for black, arguably winning. So in that kind of structure, when that knight on c3 doesn't have defense, if you can get that d-pawn to take and you can give them triple isolated pawns, an isolated pawn on e5, an isolated pawn on a2, go for that. And by the way, if h takes g6 here, either one is fine. The engine does seem to prefer the h-pawn capturing back here. And because there's just not, I mean, sometimes white can really take advantage of this file, but in this case, there's really no good way to. Our bishop is pinning that knight, and the bishop can't get kicked. And again, if you take on c5, we can take on c3. You want to take, fine. We capture back. We're down a pawn, but we're going to get that pawn right back. And, okay, our opponent has the bishop pair, which is often overrated in my opinion. Not always. I just said often. And if you look at, you know, the pawn structure here, our pawn structure is perfect. I mean, white's pawn structure, it can't get much worse. Unless you have quadruple isolated pawns, which I don't even remember the last time I saw that in a game. Nonetheless, Niemann here goes with knight to c6. We have capturing on g6. And then here, yeah, f takes g6 is the best move, according to the engine. Very slight preference there. That's what we see in the game. I would say that the advantage of taking away from the center here is that you do have an active rook joining the mix, and their rook is a little bit more limited in its activity. Bishop e2 is played, and now we have e6. And this is a good move, although knight f4 is better. Knight f4. The f4 square, if you're playing as black, is one of the best squares to put your knight in terms of attacking play. And for white, the square of f5. By putting this knight on f4, I mean, look at the coverage that knight has on the king side squares. Very important spots, very important placement. And if white takes the knight, which they really should, our rook captures back. We could play queen f8. We're mobilized. We're playing aggressive attacking chess, and we're in a good spot. So e6 here was played instead. We now have queen to d7. And here, knight takes c3, and now knight e7. And this is just a mistake. That's a bad move. That gives white a winning position. Look, again, I've said this before. When you're covering chess opening theory, when you're looking at the game of chess as a whole, you don't want to just look at the games in which case, you have the immortal game, you have the best Pirc game played ever. You want to look at a game where there's mistakes too. You want to look at games where Pirc Defense players are losing, just so that you don't know what to aim for, but what to aim against, right? Not what to do, but what not to do, what not to play, right? And here, rook f7 is the way to go. Knight e7, why is this a mistake? Well, white here is able to take on e7 and play queen g5. And we have to take the queen, unless we want to drop our bishop here. I mean, by the way, queen a3 there doesn't work, right? We lose our bishop. Sure, we throw in a little fork there, but then king f2 and the rook defends the rook, and white's attacking chances are still extremely strong. So we got to take the queen after knight takes. I mean, okay, if you take the bishop, white captures back. Our bishop's terrible here. And this is a prime example of the knight outplaying the bishop in the endgame. White has two attackers on h7, so knight takes h7 is a possibility. Knight takes e6 is a possibility, depending on what goes down. And if we see this and we go, fine, we'll defend the bishop instead of take it on e2, then white has rook h4. And this is not a good situation. I mean, if we try to hang on to the bishop, white could take on e6. White could also, goodness, Solomon, learn how to draw arrows. White could take on g4, trade down, and then take on e6. And this knight is completely outplaying the bishop. I talk about this in my endgames course, okay, over 20 hours in length. The whole idea of when the knight outplays the bishop, when the bishop outplays the knight. I tend to prefer the knight more often than the bishop in endgame play, just because the bishop can only see half the board. I know the bishop's faster, but it can only see half. The knight, on the other hand, it can see anything given enough time. Of course, it depends on the position, the pawn structure, the king placement, all that kind of stuff, and we get into that in the course. But this is a prime example of a knight just absolutely obliterating the play of the bishop. And if we take on e2, then we're down the exchange. I mean, this is not great. Of course, we can save our bishop there, but we're still down the exchange, and we're just dead losing. So white there missed the opportunity to get themselves into a winning endgame. And if you improve in the endgame, you're going to improve in the middle game as well, because you're going to see when to go into the endgame and when not to. So that's going to help your transpositional play there. But with castling queenside, white here, I mean, white's still better technically, but it's just, I don't know. Practically, I'm not feeling too good about that king on c1. Knight f5 is played. We have knight h4. And here, the best move possible, bishop takes e2. Great play there from Niemann. If knight g3, going, okay, I'm going to attack the rook and the bishop. Oh, I lose the bishop. Well, that's fine. I get the rook. Guys, a lot of beginners do this kind of thing where they give up two minor pieces for a rook. Don't do that. A rook and a pawn versus two minor pieces. I'm taking two minor pieces all day long. It is very rare for two minor pieces to be worse off than a rook and a pawn. Two minor pieces all the way. And that's very interesting. It's really the only time that there's that big of a difference when you're talking about even material. Because, like, let's say we go into the end game and one side has three pawns and the other side has a piece. That's even material, minor piece that is. But it really depends on the position much of the time. Would I rather have three pawns, that is? Would I rather have a minor piece? Who knows? Would I rather have two rooks, or would I rather have a queen and a pawn? Depends on the position. Depends on the position. Two minor pieces versus a rook and pawn, I'm taking the two minor pieces nearly every single time. Okay, so that's not a good idea. Don't play knight g3 there. Take on e2 first and then play knight g3. That's exactly what we see. Now black is up the exchange and c5 is played, really putting pressure on the white side. I mean, white didn't take, but if you do, here we go again. Triple isolated pawns. This is just terrible for white. So instead of that, we see white here go with the move of knight to f3. Not the best idea. Queen h3 is really the move there, trying to create some counter-attacking play on the king side of the board. White has to play actively here. Black is up material. Black's up material. White needs to avoid trades, and white needs to make the game complicated. But we see the move knight f3. Here we have c takes d4, very good move, and now rook a c8. Now by taking on d4, white no longer has double pawns, but that's okay. I think double pawns are often seen as a terrible thing. And sure, if I have a choice between doubled pawns or pawns side by side, I'll take the pawn side by side. But doubled pawns, as a whole, they get a little bit too much flack. Okay, they do. And here, I mean, sure, white doesn't have those double pawns, but this rook on c8 is attacking the pawn on c2. And this king is very loose. If we're looking at pieces on the queen side, right, not counting pawns, minor and major pieces, we have two major pieces. White has nothing but their king. Nothing. So this is a great move here. c3 is played. We now have queen a4. Black there could have went with other moves, including rook takes c3 with check and rook c8. That works. That would have been great. But okay, queen a4, rook c6 is played. Great rook lift idea. Knight d2. And I mean, just so much pressure here towards the king side. You only have a knight and the queen defending. I'm not counting this bishop or the rook on h1 as defenders for the white king. And here is one of those positions where you want to remind yourself, hey, if there's a threat, just stop the threat and then keep on going. Chess is a game of reading and reacting, right? You're going to be making threats and you're going to be stopping threats. There's a back and forth naturally in the game of chess. Now, sometimes you're going to be in the position where you're making the threat and making the threat and making the threat. That's great. Sometimes you're going to be stopping a threat, stopping a threat, stopping a threat, stopping a threat over and over and over. And that's annoying. Sometimes you got to do it, but what you want to do, what's the best thing to do is, okay, stop a threat and then keep the attack going. Okay, stop another threat. Okay, make a threat of your own. Make an idea of your own. Make some counterplay going. But just because you're stopping a threat doesn't mean you're playing bad. I mean, here the best move black can play is h5, stopping the idea of queen takes h7. That's exactly what we see. Knight b3 is played here, and queen c4 is what Niemann ends up going with. I do want to say that rook takes c3 is the best move, okay, by far. Rook takes c3. I mean, we're looking at c2, we're looking at that queen. The best thing white can do is just trade down, but here we could take the pawn. But I would love to get my queen to g2 because then I'd be attacking the hanging rook and the hanging bishop. So let's go 1 with a check and then 2. And this is just resignable for white. But instead we see the move of queen c4. Here we have queen to e2. I'm not sure what the time control was on this. I'm assuming this was a faster game because Niemann with more time obviously would have found these types of moves. But queen f5 is played, offering a trade. White here rejects the trade. And we have queen to f1. Rook g3, putting pressure on g6. And now the queen goes back to f5. The engine really likes king h7. Just holding the fort down, right? I mean, you want to take on h5, thanks. You want to take on g6, thanks. You want to put more pressure. Okay, we can offer a trade now. But we see queen f5. And this allowed white, they missed it, but this allows white to play rook g5. And as you can see, our queen isn't feeling very comfortable. If we go to d3, barely hanging onto the pawn, rook g3 is played. Right? So if we go there, rook g3. Oh, we don't want to lose the pawn, and we go here. Okay, rook g5 again. And we don't want to draw here as black, right? But that's really the best thing we got at this point. I mean, we could play queen f7, but then queen e4 and white here. They're down material, but they do have a good attacking position, and they've managed to play good defensive chess, holding down that pawn on c3. And unfortunately for us, we don't have a knight that can start dancing around and taking over those outposts. So all that said, here white misses that idea of seeing the weakness on g6 and really going after it in a good way. We instead see queen to e7. This allows rook 6 to c7. That's what we saw there. Just putting pressure on the queen. Queen d6 is played. This was a blunder. The following move had white seemingly resign. If you want to, you can pause the video here. What would you play as black? Tactical idea here. The move that Niemann goes with is bishop f8. The queen simply has nowhere to go. Okay, but in terms of Pirc's defense theory, keep that idea in mind. Of course, we have the following position here, knight f3. And if you see knight f3 followed by e5, take the pawn. Okay, now when we're in the original setup, if you see e5 right now, bring your knight to d7. But if you see knight f3 and then e5, take the pawn. Take the pawn there. If the knight takes, you have c5. If the pawn takes, you can trade. And if the f pawn takes, centralize your knight. Keep playing from there. Hope you enjoyed this video. And a quick reminder as well, the 30% off discount code is chess25. I'll see you on the next video. I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big thanks to Walter, Steve, Rob, that's a lot of Robs, Ray, Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon before, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. And I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Peace.